Hello and welcome to Naveed for Speed. This is the BMW i7. This is BMW's latest luxury saloon or limousine. And this BMW i7, of course, is electric. So let's take a look around it.
The BMW i7 xDrive60 produces 544 horsepower and 745 Nm of torque. This results in 0 to 62 miles per hour in 4.7 seconds. Prices start at nearly £114,000 on the road.
If we start from the front of the car, you immediately see the huge kidney grille. Now, the kidney grille on the BMWs is quite controversial anyway. On the smaller vehicles, it doesn't really make sense. On the larger vehicles, I thought it did make sense, like on the X7, but on the BMW i7, it still looks a bit out of place. It still looks slightly too big, and of course it's an electric car, so why does it need such a big grille? But of course BMW have created this grille specifically for this car because BMW want all the different vehicles to have a different distinct image. So for example, with the BMW 5 Series, which has just come out, the new version has just come out recently, the BMW 5 Series actually has a pretty conservative grille, to be honest. I really quite like the look of the BMW 5 Series, and I'm so glad that BMW haven't changed the grille of the 5 Series too much. But of course we've seen it in like the BMW M3 and of course in the BMW iX. BMW have started to go for these huge grilles, but of course it gets people talking. Another big change is these headlights. They're now split into two. So at the top you have the daylight running lights, and at the bottom you have the big LED nighttime lights. The daylight running lights, you can actually spec them with optional extras to have Swarovski crystals inside them. As we move towards the side of the car, it all looks a bit more clean, crisp. There's smooth lines. There's not too much by way of features. You get these door handles that are flush in the door and they're very neat. Of course, if you press this button, you can actually open them automatically, although on this version you can't because it doesn't have that spec to it. As we move further to the back, you get the rear window has the triangle shapes which we've seen on the BMW iX. So again, it shows that design language that is running through the entire brand, and this is basically the future of the BMW brand. As we move towards the back, well, the back looks mostly unchanged. You get this very small lip spoiler, which just adds to the theatre of the car, I suppose. You get a pretty cool looking, essentially a plastic fake diffuser, and obviously no exhaust because the car is electric. This car is electric, but it's been built on the BMW 7 Series platform, so it can have an internal combustion engine, and there are versions that will be coming along that have a petrol or diesel engine. But of course, purely electric, big car. Of course, those batteries are going to add weight, but let's see how it is to drive.
Before going out on the road, I wanted to show you the rear seats.
So the most interesting feature of this car, the one that I'm most excited about and I really wanted to experience, is the theatre mode. You simply press the fold down button on the touchpad, the blinds go up, and what you find is a 32-inch widescreen 8K cinema theatre system in the back of the car.
If you want to see more of the rear seats in the BMW i7, then be sure to subscribe, as I'll be posting a full video about the rear seat features.
Right, so of course, this car is very lovely to sit in the back. And if you do buy this car, that's probably where you're going to spend most of your time. But at some point, somebody, whether it be yourself or a chauffeur, has to drive the car. So it must drive good. It must be a nice, comfortable drive because it needs to be relaxing. So what is it actually like to drive? My first instincts when I'm sat in the car and I put my foot on the accelerator, because it's electric, it has that instant torque and it feels pretty light. Now that's not to say it feels small. The car certainly does feel big. It feels smaller than, I'd say, a Rolls-Royce Ghost, but certainly feels bigger than a Bentley Flying Spur, for example. It's effortless in the way that it sets off and it takes off, but you definitely always feel that size. And that might be because this car has been built on the BMW 7 Series platform, which wasn't made for an electric motor, it was made for internal combustion engines. and of course you're going to be compromised in the design of the car because it's not purely designed as an electric car. But otherwise it feels very comfortable. Over these bumps you do get feedback, you do feel the bumps, but they don't punish you. You have these really nice comfortable cushion seats, to be honest. They feel more like cushion than they do feel like seats, and they do support you really well. Inside, the interior is all very luxurious. The sort of materials that are used, you get this nice perforated leather everywhere, and you have BMW's usual crystal in the iDrive selector and crystals to adjust the seats. So it's again similar to what I saw in the BMW iX, but this being the BMW 7 Series, essentially, it needs to be that bit more luxurious. So BMW have introduced stuff like this sort of crystal, I think it's polycarbonate material that runs all along the dashboard, all the way down to the passenger side, all the way along the door, and that can light up in different colors depending on the situation, depending on what mode you have the car in, or if there's any danger on the road. Oh yes, just interrupting myself there rather. The car although it does feel big and it feels heavy, it certainly doesn't in terms of performance. When it wants to, it can really, get a move on. So when it comes to performance, it's not that big, but certainly from size, it does feel big. As I was saying about the interior materials, now these are all backlit, so there's a really cool light, and if you're in sport mode it changes to red, and if you are warned of some sort of danger it will flash red, similar to what I saw in the Cupras. Again, it's technology which we're seeing roll out to more and more cars. So some of the stuff that we see in this car you might see in future BMWs. Again, similar steering wheel to the BMW iX, big, chunky, nice to feel, nice to grip on, has this sort of flat bottom as well with the BMW M logo. And I'm quite glad that they haven't overwhelmed you with so many buttons on the steering wheel. Although I do mention the word buttons, most of these buttons on the steering wheel and on the center console aren't actually buttons. They're sort of haptic feedback, touch sensitive pads, but they're very easy to use, and you can use them for the infotainment system, which is very quick, very responsive, and to be honest, some of the best graphics I've seen. It's really crisp and clean and easy to navigate. I'm going to take this for one more blast on the Millbrook hill route, and let's put the car into drive mode, sport mode rather. And now everything sort of changes to red, and you can hear the electric motor a little bit more, but that's not really the electric motor. What that is you can hear a little bit more sound from the electric motor, the whirring sound, although you could already hear that in normal mode, but now you can hear it even more so. But of course that isn't actual noise coming from the electric motor, that is artificial noise that's coming through the speaker system. And of course, if we mention the artificial noise that's coming through the speaker system, we have to mention Hans Zimmer. Of course, Hans Zimmer, the world-renowned composer who has made countless amazing movie scores. He composed the sound for this car, so when you put your foot down, that sound was Hans Zimmer. But what wasn't designed by Hans Zimmer was the sudden shock that you got, which I just got there. And now the car does not feel that big, and it does not feel that heavy. Now the car feels capable. There's very little in the way of body roll to the car. And considering I've done a considerable journey this morning to get here to drive this car, I would much rather go home in this, because it's just so comfortable. It's so smooth to drive. It's just brilliant. I suppose if you were to drive like this, your range would significantly reduce, although BMW say that the range is around 380 miles, but I suspect the real world range is a lot less than that. But charging is really good. Apparently you can charge it from, you can add another 100 or so miles to range in around 10 minutes. So overall then, my first impressions of the BMW i7, I'm a big fan of BMWs. I really like the cars, and when they decided to bring out all these cars with the new updated grills, I was a bit upset, but having driven some of the cars, they're just so capable that I can't hate them. Everybody loves to hate BMWs now, but just try one, just get inside one and just drive it. Trust me, it is such an amazing drive. And from where I'm currently sitting, I can't stress that enough. The BMW i7 is certainly a car that you should look towards if you are in the market for a similar car. But of course, compared to cars like the Tesla Model S, the Mercedes EQS, and of course some internal combustion engine cars, it's just a matter of preference. If you like the technology, it's certainly a car to consider. If you're going to be spending a lot more time in the back, definitely consider. But if you're going to be driving this car, then I feel like as an engaging drive, there might be other cars out there.